My name is Michael Maxwell. I'm a resident of Rydal, and my wife and I have a property that has a magnificent view of Mount Walker at the present time. My background is this: I'm a barrister by occupation. I'm a member of the Resolution Institute, and I'm also on the panel of the National Sport Tribunal. Perhaps I should emphasise first, we are not opposed to renewable energy. We are not opposed to these types of projects. It's just this project does not stack up. And we'll present a case today which will demonstrate that. This is where we start. So this is Mount Walker, or the Mount Walker Precinct. The Mount Walker Precinct includes Mount Walker at the top there, as you can see, and down the bottom we have the Upper Farmers Creek arm of Lake Lyell. And this is where the majority of work will be taking place, the majority of destruction. It's also where 13% of the water capacity of the lake will be pumped up to the top every day and will return to provide power later in the day. I should say that the round trip efficiency of this pumping is 80% according to the Energy Australia records. What that means is it will take more power to pump the water up than it actually generates. So there'll be a 20% net loss of power as a consequence of that. Perhaps I could just dwell on Mount Walker for a moment. Mount Walker is actually the highest peak in this area. If you've crossed Mount Victoria, it is higher than Mount Victoria. If you're familiar with Hassans Wall Lookout, which is described as the highest lookout in the Blue Mountains, it's higher than Hassans Wall. So it is a very significant and largely untouched mountain. You can see that, and these are photos taken from every angle, north, south, east and west. You can see that it is highly conspicuous. It's visible from all sides and from a significant distance. It's been there for millions of years. Other than Indigenous people, it's largely unnoticed, except now that people are wanting to destroy it. To Indigenous people, and you'll hear from Rick Slavin again later on, it is very significant. It has amazingly significant cultural heritage. It's effectively, and this is as Rick has explained it to me, it's effectively the local Indigenous people's Uluru. So it's extremely significant, and he will talk about that later, so I'll leave that to him. So you might wonder why we've got a harbour bridge there. I start by putting it there because it shows, that's to scale by the way, it just shows the significant size of Mount Walker. Mount Walker, of course, when you see it in photographs, doesn't appear that significant, but with the harbour bridge there, which stands at 139 metres tall, it looks fairly insignificant. And of course, that is roughly, but pretty close to where the reservoir proposed for this scheme will be. And that's the size that we will see there. The circle, of course, is Farmers Creek, and those two areas are basically where the work is going to be carried out, the demolition work, the construction work. In this area, we have platypus, which we'll hear from Lucy about later. Our members, that's members of our group, have taken many photographs and many videos of the platypus, and there's a significant population there. And I'll leave that to Lucy to describe later on. This is what we currently have. This is a largely untouched, we can call it pristine mountain, lake, a creek, largely been unnoticed for a long period of time. This is what's coming. I want you to soak that in because it's quite frightening. This is a photograph that was taken from the documents of Energy Australia. It's sanitised. I call it sanitised because it's what might look like at the end of all the construction. We know from the Lake Lyell scoping report, which was presented to New South Wales Major Works, that the work area is 168 hectares. That's equivalent to about 1.68 square kilometres. And you can imagine that with that amount of work, it's going to be decimating the whole area, not just what we see, which is the sanitised ultimate version. This project is within 6 kilometres of Lithgow CBD. It's within 2.5 kilometres of the local residential zoned areas, and it's within about 200 metres of already existing homes. You can imagine the impact that that's going to have. There'll be drilling, there'll be a lot of noise for a long period of time. The reservoir at the top is 143 metres. That is from top to toe. So what that means is from the bottom of the reservoir to the top of the reservoir, you've got a distance of 143 metres. The harbour bridge is 139 metres, so it will be bigger than the harbour bridge. So just going back, that's what it could be like. That's what we have. It's a bit chilling, isn't it? Bear this in mind too. Once that project that you've just seen is concluded, is it capable of being decommissioned? It'll be impossible. Once that mountain has been changed, that's it for life. And that's the legacy we'll be leaving. The sad thing is that because it's not capable of being decommissioned, it's a legacy that we'll be leaving to our children or our grandchildren or great-grandchildren. A reservoir sitting on the top of a mountain in a dubious project. What will those children or grandchildren be saying? What in the hell were you doing when you put that up the top there? How do we get rid of it? What did the mountain look like? That's how it looked. But it won't be like that in 80 years' time. That's the life expectancy of the project according to Energy Australia. Life expectancy of something like 80 years. They'll need to address that in 80 years' time. It's all very well to say, I'll be dead by then. But we've left that legacy if this is approved. Just reflecting on the magnitude of a harbour bridge-like structure sitting on the top of that mountain, one has to question as to whether or not, if this was applied for, if this project was looked at in the metropolitan area, would it be approved? Highly unlikely. Finally, we go from a pristine mountain like that to an eyesore. It's so sad, particularly when there are viable other projects that are cheaper, more capable of being decommissioned, and have less or no environmental impact. I'll just leave you with that thought.